Many citizens of Colonial Heights have made the ultimate sacrifice, giving their lives in service to our country. On December 1st, 1944, a temporary memorial to Colonial Heights war dead was dedicated by the American Legion on land north of Old City Hall. 6 years later, on July 1st, 1950, the American Legion was given approval to proceed with a permanent memorial to those killed in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
During World War II, my children tell me that I don't know how to cook. But during World War II, I ran a boarding house, and I did cook during that time. We had a lot of patriotism. Everybody knew everybody. Violet Banks was one of the patriotic places here in Colonial Heights, and during the war there was about 8 families that lived in Violet Banks.
During World War II, I was air warden, air raid warden, and Dr. Boyle and his wife, they were the captains, but I was on Chesterfield Avenue, and we used to have quite a time.
I was drafted in 1943, reported to Fort Lee, took basic training in Fort Lee, and technical training also, they call it. After you finish basic training, they put you in what they call technical training, either one of several different series of occupations. From there, I was in Washington, D.C. on temporary duty. That was after I was commissioned. I was commissioned in 1944, November 1944, and that same year I was sent to Washington, D.C. on temporary duty to the National Bureau of Standards, who were developing these large truckers at that time, 10-ton trailer units they were using for carrying perishables in the Army, and were developing a refrigeration unit on the end of the truckers. You've seen them up on the outside.
I had just turned 18 and decided I might as well go ahead and join so I could get into the branch of service that I wanted. I decided the Air Force was for me, and went to Richmond and took the examination. And during the examination, I started chatting with another boy, and he says, you know, if we went into the quartermaster, Fort Lee is a quartermaster depot, and we probably could stay at Fort Lee. He said, my brother just did that. So I had 3 questions to answer, and I got up and told the guy, I said, I've changed my mind. I don't want to go in the Air Force. So a month later, I was drafted, and they put me in the Air Force. But I was 18 in April, was drafted into service in June, pulled 34 months, 17 months with the Air Corps in the South Pacific, and got out before I was 21 years old.
Many of the homes here opened up. They created apartments. My parents did. They created apartments for the troops that lived off base that were married. On Thanksgiving and Christmas, they would always invite a large group of troops to come in for dinner. And they weren't the only ones that did that. This was commonplace. The community was very much behind them.
Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you.
And then there were the very important courthoppers walked here.
Courthoppers, yeah.
Remember the night we got paid in watermelons?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was at the Giroux Community House or whatever.
House, yeah.
Paid us in watermelons.
But you know, we sang a lot of places, and we sang for a lot of groups and civic organizations and dinner meetings and whatnot. We never got a whole lot of money, but we got a lot of free meals, didn't we?
Right, it's made nice yeah, meals.
Right. Never went hungry.
Never went hungry. No, it didn't.
I used to carry everything around. Remember the pitch pipe? Pitch pipe. I always had the pitch pipe in that little box. And I had any little stories that I wanted to tell, so I had the cues in that little box. And I used to keep, and I used to keep whatever little money we had. I kept that in that box. And finally, that pitch pipe box just sort of wore out, and I started putting rubber bands around it to hold it together. But you know, I think Ariel was he was sort of instrumental in getting the group together. I mean, even though Keith might have been a director.
Oh yeah.
At that time, Ariel was always plugging and sending letters to people to join.
He was the backbone.
You can call Ariel Mr. Barbershop. Yeah, that's right. In fact, they said his philosophy in life was a singing man is a happy man, and that was true as far as he was concerned.
Let me call you
I remember sitting on my porch very well and looking across the highway to Mr. Pride's and watching him bring his team out, hitch him up to tend the soil, and which was very nice. And then just up the street, the Cases lived, and she raised chickens, and we could go up there and buy eggs, which made it very nice and convenient. And directly across the street there was Johnny's Lone Cedar Barbecue. I always remember that.
Johnny Bryant.
That was him, and it was strictly a one-man operation, but he did a good job with it, and always had a nice conversation for you when you went in. And he also had a nice garden there. In the springtime, you could get your produce there. So then I could move just a little bit to the north, next to the Pride's, and there was a nice little comfortable place I called the Hi-Ho Inn. Very nice people run it. If you felt like a snack or refreshment, you'd go in and get served.
The Historical Society started out as the Colonial Heights Historical Commission back in 1974 and was formed to have activities to help celebrate the 200th anniversary of the country. And Colonial Heights was designated as a bicentennial community, which was one of, I believe, 50 or 100 around the country. There weren't very many. And we started off with activities, and the first, we had parade. There's a nice stone monument dedicating the bicentennial up the boulevard as you come over the hill from Petersburg. Out of that, and as fundraising efforts and so on, the Fort Clifton Festival, which is fairly well known in the city, started.
First of all, we came into the area in 1949. The first time I was ever in Colonial Heights, I stopped at Landa's filling station, which was way out in the country at that time, looking for directions to Petersburg, where I went to work as a school teacher right out of college after having time in the service. We lived in Petersburg for 6 years, and we came to Colonial Heights in about 56, pretty much like Wallace did. And I was on, of course, I stayed there for a number of years, and I was on council for 12 years, mayor 6 of those 12. And during that time, we saw a lot of things happen. When we first came, the city population, I think, was about 7,000, something like that in 56, and it's grown to where it is now. And it's been a great place to live.
I came to Colonial Heights when I was 4 years old. And I lived right on Westover, right across from Floral Hill School. And it was easy because I could come home for lunch and I could wait until the bell was ringing and run across the street to school. So I go back a long ways. I've spent all my life there. I've never lived anyplace else. Seen a lot of changes in the city.
I moved to Colonial Heights on November the 1st, 1929, on Hamilton Avenue, and I have lived here ever since in the same house for that length of time. When we first moved to Colonial Heights was just a one-horse town, I would say, and Fred Shepard was the mayor.
We have just completed our new municipal building, which houses all department heads, police, fire, engineering, and all other city offices. The city of Colonial Heights was started in 1926 as a town of approximately 600 people. In 1948, we incorporated as a city of the second class. At the present time, we have a population of somewhere near 10,000 people. We are surrounded by 3 trunk line railroads, the Appomattox River on the east and Swift Creek on the northeast. We have a municipal water plant, sewer disposal plant, and all up-to-date utilities that are necessary to make a city grow. We believe that any person who is interested in industrial sites will investigate the possibilities of the city of Colonial Heights. They will honestly want to locate here and come to live with us. The city officials welcome any investigation through the Chamber of Commerce. We will cooperate in every way possible. We have the lowest tax rate of any city in the state. This is a fact which we are all very proud of. We wish you would investigate the opportunities we can offer and will come and be a part of our growing city. We thank you.
Oh, it's an excellent place to live. I really enjoy Colonial Heights. I moved here from the Shenandoah Valley 11 years ago, and I was really having a tough time with it because I really loved Harrisonburg where I lived. And I think the nice thing about Colonial Heights being close to Richmond, being close to Virginia Beach, North Carolina, and halfway between the mountains, we're just so centrally located, and it's a nice small community. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody enjoys the activities that are provided to them within the city.
So we went to New York and got our bond rating and came back and then borrowed $4 million to put the South Park Boulevard interchange off of Interstate 95. And that particular interchange cost us about $4 million. And it went into a cornfield, and I always feel like that it was good. It was not an election year because people will be wondering what we were doing with the taxpayers' money. But as a result of that, he agreed to build the facility, which costs between $70 and $100 million, and we've seen it now up to close to $300 million in development.
When I would start up that hill from any direction to Colonial Heights, and especially turn in Carroll Avenue, I think, well, there was no place on earth that I'd rather be than there.
Every time my husband and I would go on trips, and as we would exit I-95 in the later years, I would always say, "Home, sweet home." He said, "Charlotte, you always say that." And I want you to know, I still feel that way about it today. Home, sweet home, Colonial Heights.
Well, we've been a city now for more than 50 years. And whether you were born here, raised here, moved here, or just passing through, you've got to admit, it's a good place to visit, a great place to live. I'm Bob Peterson.